When we think about the idea of someone truly loving us, the first and most important truth that rises to the surface is consistency. Love is not something that should only appear when it feels easy, comfortable, or convenient. When a man truly loves you, he shows up with his presence, his attention, and his effort in ways that are steady and reliable. Consistency doesn't mean perfection, because no one is perfect, but it does mean that he understands that love requires showing up even on the days when life feels messy, when schedules are overwhelming, or when emotions are complicated. It means that you don't have to second guess whether he's going to call, whether he's going to follow through on his word, or whether he's going to stand by you when things get hard. You don't live with that anxious wondering of whether his love is conditional or fleeting, because his actions remind you that he is choosing you over and over again. There is a kind of courage that comes with showing up consistently in love, because it requires leaning into vulnerability instead of hiding behind excuses. It's easy to show up for someone when everything feels light and fun, when there's laughter and joy and no heavy responsibilities to carry. But the real test of love is whether he continues to show up when stress enters the room, when conflict surfaces, or when life throws unexpected challenges your way. A man who truly loves you doesn't disappear when things become uncomfortable, because he recognizes that love is not built on convenience but on commitment. His presence becomes an anchor for you, not something that you have to chase or beg for. And in that presence, there is a deep sense of safety. You begin to understand that his consistency is not about habit, but about a choice to honor what you mean to him every single day. This kind of consistency creates trust, and trust is the soil where intimacy and connection grow. Without trust, love cannot thrive, because doubt and uncertainty begin to erode the foundation. But when you see that he continues to follow through, continues to check in, continues to prioritize you, even in the small and ordinary moments, you feel the weight of that trust building. It doesn't look like dramatic declarations or only showing affection when it benefits him. It looks like the daily rhythm of reliability. It looks like remembering the details that matter to you, being present without distraction when you need to be heard, and being available when you need support. You realize that his words and his actions are in alignment, and that alignment reassures you that his love isn't situational, it's steadfast. Consistency is also about emotional availability, because showing up isn't only about being physically present. It's about being there in spirit, being tuned in to how you feel, being willing to listen without judgment, and being present enough to notice the moments when you're not okay. A man who truly loves you doesn't just check the box of being physically around. He leans into connection, into eye contact, into those quiet spaces where what you need is not advice, but empathy. He doesn't leave you questioning if you matter or if you are being taken seriously, because his consistent presence communicates that you are worthy of attention and care. That kind of love reminds you that you don't have to minimize your needs or silence your feelings to keep the peace, because he shows up ready to engage with the real, authentic version of you. The power of consistency in love is that it creates freedom. When you are no longer preoccupied with wondering if he will show up, you have space to rest, to grow, and to pour into the relationship without fear of being abandoned. You no longer live in the cycle of highs and lows, where love feels like a guessing game. Instead, you know that his love is woven into the daily fabric of your life, not as a performance, but as a choice. And that choice, repeated again and again, makes all the difference in how secure, cherished, and seen you feel. When a man truly loves you, one of the clearest signs is the way he respects your boundaries and honors your voice. Boundaries are not walls. They are the lines that define where you end and where someone else begins. They are the expressions of your values, your needs, and your limits. A man who genuinely loves you understands that respecting your boundaries is not about restriction, but about honoring the person you are He does not view your boundaries as obstacles to overcome or challenges to test. Instead, he sees them as invitations to love you in the way you need to be loved. This means that when you say no, he accepts it without guilt or pressure. And when you express discomfort, he listens and adjusts. You never feel as though you have to explain your worth or justify why your needs matter, because he makes it clear through his actions that your voice carries weight. Respecting boundaries also requires listening deeply, not just hearing words, but paying attention to meaning. A man who truly loves you doesn't just wait for his turn to respond or push past your feelings. He takes the time to understand what you're communicating. He values your perspective, even when it differs from his own, because he sees you as an equal partner rather than someone to dominate or silence. This kind of respect creates a space where you feel free to speak openly without fear of dismissal or ridicule. It turns conversations into opportunities for connection rather than battlegrounds for control. In that space, your voice is not only acknowledged but encouraged, and that kind of acknowledgement builds trust and intimacy that cannot be faked. There is also a deeper truth here. Respecting your boundaries shows that he recognizes your individuality. Love does not erase two identities into one. It honors the uniqueness each person brings. A man who truly loves you doesn't try to mold you into his image or pressure you to conform to his expectations. Instead, he celebrates the ways you are different, the ways you stand firm in your truth, and the ways you protect your own well-being. When you say you need time, he gives it without resentment. When you set limits around your energy or your emotional space, he accepts them without taking it as rejection. He knows that honoring your independence strengthens the relationship rather than threatens it, because real love doesn't demand control, it thrives on mutual respect. This respect extends to how he handles conflict. Boundaries are often tested in moments of disagreement, and a man who truly loves you does not resort to manipulation, guilt, or intimidation to get his way. He doesn't dismiss your feelings by saying you're overreacting or turn the focus back on himself to avoid accountability. Instead, he holds space for your voice even when it challenges him, even when it makes him uncomfortable, because he knows that love requires honesty and respect more than it requires ease. This doesn't mean he always gets it right, but it does mean that he works to repair when he missteps, acknowledging your feelings and making changes to honor your boundaries better in the future. When your boundaries and your voice are respected, you feel safe to bring your full self into the relationship. You don't shrink to fit into his expectations or silence your needs to avoid conflict. You don't feel like loving him means abandoning yourself. Instead, you feel a balance of freedom and closeness, knowing that your individuality is seen as an essential part of the relationship. That respect becomes a form of love in itself because it communicates that who you are matters, that your needs are valid, and that your voice will always be heard. When a man truly loves you, one of the most powerful truths that becomes clear is the way he supports your growth without feeling threatened. Real love doesn't shrink in the face of another person's expansion. It celebrates it. A man who genuinely loves you understands that your dreams, your goals, and your evolution are not competition, but inspiration. He wants to see you succeed, not because it benefits him directly, but because he delights in watching you step into the fullest version of yourself. He knows that your growth is not a threat to the relationship, but a gift to it. Because when you thrive, the relationship thrives too. Instead of trying to hold you back or keep you small, he encourages you to reach for more, to believe in yourself, and to keep moving forward even when it's hard. This kind of love is rooted in security, not insecurity. Insecure love feels the need to control, to dominate, to diminish the other person's light in order to keep the relationship balanced. But when a man truly loves you, he has no need to compete with you. He doesn't measure his worth against yours or view your achievements as reminders of what he hasn't done. Instead, he takes pride in them because your success brings him joy rather than fear. He doesn't worry that your independence will pull you away from him. He trusts the strength of the bond you share. That trust frees him to cheer you on, to offer support without strings attached, and to celebrate your victories with genuine excitement. Supporting your growth also means being there in the messy middle, not just the shining moments of achievement. Growth is rarely a straight line, and it often comes with setbacks, failures, and doubts. A man who truly loves you doesn't only appear when the results look impressive, he shows up in the process. He listens to your frustrations without judgment, offers encouragement when you're ready to give up, and reminds you of your strength when you forget it yourself. He sees potential in you even when you can't see it, and his faith becomes a steady reminder that you don't have to walk the journey alone. His support isn't about fixing everything for you or taking control of your path, but about standing alongside you as you figure it out, trusting your ability to rise. There is a deep humility in loving someone this way. It requires letting go of ego and embracing partnership, where love is not about one person outshining the other, but about walking side by side. A man who truly loves you doesn't need the spotlight to always be on him. He doesn't feel diminished when it shifts to you. He knows that love is expansive, not scarce, and that celebrating you does not mean losing himself. His encouragement is not performative, it's genuine, because he finds meaning in being your supporter as much as being your partner. And in that humility, there is freedom. Freedom for both of you to grow without fear, to expand without guilt, and to love without competition. When your growth is supported in this way, the relationship becomes a place of empowerment rather than limitation. You no longer feel the need to downplay your achievements to protect his ego or hide your ambitions to keep the peace. You no longer carry the fear that becoming more means losing love. Instead, you find yourself encouraged to dream bigger, to step into challenges you might have once avoided, and to explore the fullness of who you are becoming. That kind of support is a rare and beautiful gift because it communicates that he doesn't just love who you are today, he loves who you are becoming tomorrow. When a man truly loves you, one of the most profound ways it shows is in his willingness to choose vulnerability instead of hiding behind pride. Pride is often the armor men are taught to wear, the protective shell that keeps emotions at bay and shields them from judgment. But real love cannot flourish when everything is filtered through ego and self-protection. A man who truly loves you recognizes that intimacy requires openness, and openness requires the courage to let his guard down. This doesn't mean he is never strong or that he doesn't have confidence, but it does mean that he understands strength isn't found in pretending to be invincible. Strength is found in the honesty of saying, "I'm scared, I don't know," or "I need you." Vulnerability becomes the bridge between two hearts, and when he chooses it over pride, he chooses connection over distance. Choosing vulnerability means being willing to share his real feelings instead of only what feels safe or comfortable. Many men are raised to believe that showing fear, sadness, or uncertainty is weakness, so they avoid it at all costs. But a man who truly loves you doesn't hide behind that mask. He trusts you enough to share his inner world, the worries that weigh on him, the doubts he carries, and even the dreams he fears might never come true. He lets you see the parts of him that are unfinished, the parts that are tender, because he knows that real love is not about pretending to have it all together. When he opens up in this way, it deepens the relationship in a way that surface-level pride never could, because it invites you into the most authentic version of who he is. Vulnerability also shows up in the willingness to admit mistakes and take accountability. Pride resists apology. Pride deflects blame. Pride insists on being right even when it causes harm. But love that is genuine recognizes the power of humility. A man who truly loves you does not see admitting he was wrong as weakness. He sees it as necessary to protect the bond you share. He understands that ego cannot take precedence over connection, so he chooses to repair rather than to win. This willingness to apologize, to learn, and to grow shows you that your relationship matters more to him than being in control. And in that choice, he builds a foundation of trust where you know that mistakes will not destroy love because they are met with accountability and care. The choice of vulnerability over pride is also what allows intimacy to flourish. Intimacy is not built on constant perfection or polished appearances, but on the raw and unfiltered truth of two people daring to be seen. When a man loves you enough to be emotionally naked, to cry in front of you, to tell you his fears, to let you witness the cracks in his armor, he is telling you that he trusts you with his heart. That level of trust is not something given lightly, and it transforms love into something that feels safe and sacred. Pride keeps people at arm's length, but vulnerability invites closeness, creating a space where both of you can be fully yourselves without fear of rejection. When pride is set aside and vulnerability is embraced, love becomes a partnership built on authenticity rather than performance. You don't find yourself questioning whether what you see is real because he no longer hides behind walls of toughness or silence. You are not left alone to carry the emotional weight of the relationship because he meets you there with honesty. His vulnerability becomes an invitation for your own, making it possible to share the deepest parts of yourselves without shame. And in that shared openness, you discover a love that is not only steady, but profoundly human. A love that deepens with every brave choice to lay pride aside. When a man truly loves you, one of the clearest truths you will feel is that love becomes safe, steady, and undeniable. Safe love is not about living without challenges or disagreements, but about knowing that at the core, you are secure. It means you are not constantly questioning where you stand, not left in a cycle of doubt, and not waiting for the rug to be pulled out from under you. Safety in love is knowing that even when storms come, his commitment doesn't waver. It's about being able to take risks, to share your fears, to speak your truth without worrying that honesty will cost you the relationship. That kind of love gives you the courage to be fully yourself because you are not bracing for rejection or abandonment. Safety is the soil where trust grows, and when a man loves you in this way, you realize you no longer have to compromise your peace of mind in exchange for companionship. Steadiness is another mark of true love because it transforms love from something fragile into something enduring. Steady love doesn't swing wildly between highs and lows, leaving you dizzy with uncertainty. It isn't built on drama or chaos. It is rooted in consistency and reliability. A man who truly loves you shows up day after day with the same devotion, not only when it's easy, not only when life is smooth, but also in the seasons that test patience and resilience. Steadiness means you can count on him to be present, to follow through, and to stand beside you no matter what comes. It does not mean perfection because steady love still has flaws and disagreements, but it does mean there is a dependable rhythm, a knowing that his affection isn't conditional on circumstances. In a world that often feels unpredictable, that steadiness becomes a kind of refuge. Undeniable love is the natural result of safety and steadiness combined. It's not something you have to convince yourself of, not something you chase or question. It's the quiet assurance that comes from actions aligning with words, from effort aligning with intention. When a man truly loves you, you don't feel the need to interpret mixed signals or decode confusing behavior because his love makes itself known. You see it in the way he chooses you in small and big ways, in the way he invests in the relationship, and in the way he makes it clear that you are his partner, not an afterthought. Undeniable love doesn't hide. It doesn't make you wonder if you're asking for too much. It doesn't keep you in limbo. It is steady enough to be trusted, safe enough to be leaned on, and clear enough to silence doubt. There is a profound peace that comes with this kind of love. Instead of being consumed by uncertainty or weighed down by fear, you can finally rest in the knowing that love is secure. That peace doesn't mean there won't be challenges, but it does mean that the challenges won't shake the foundation. You can approach life with more confidence because you are not carrying the burden of questioning whether the relationship is fragile. That stability creates room for joy, for laughter, for shared dreams, because so much energy is no longer wasted on managing insecurity. Love that is safe, steady, and undeniable becomes the environment where you both can flourish because it allows space for both comfort and growth without fear of losing connection. This kind of love also changes how you view yourself. When you are loved in a way that feels steady and safe, you begin to understand that you are worthy of that kind of treatment. You no longer accept inconsistency, manipulation, or conditional affection because you know what real love feels like. A man who truly loves you doesn't make you question your value. He reflects it back to you every day in the way he treats you. That reflection strengthens your own sense of self, reminding you that love at its best is not chaotic or confusing, but clear and grounding. In that undeniable love, you find not only a partner, but also a place to belong, a space where you are free to be both strong and vulnerable, both independent and connected, without fear of being diminished.